Hey there, Sebastius here. This is just a tutorial on the fear and morale system for the behavior tree combat AI integration for the kit. We'll just have a quick look at the state and what we're expecting. This little monster over here has the morale system built in. At a certain point he panics, animates and flees, gains a bit of courage after a while, and then keeps wandering along. The behavior tree for that is fairly simple. We need to look at, so it's got basically three variables which we're using to handle the AI. We have a monster morale list which contains percentage point of hit points where they decide to flee or not, and the chance of fleeing at that stage. He's got two stages, so at about 20% hit point he has a 90% chance of fleeing. We have a bravery state which is set at start. This determines how brave the monster is. A brave monster will never flee. Cautious and cowardly monsters will use the monster morale list and flee on chances. The difference between these two is a cautious monster, if it succeeds a morale check, it becomes steadfast, which is the same as brave, and it will no longer fail morale or even check morale from that point. A cowardly monster will never if it passes a morale check, it'll just keep on going, fighting, and then have a next check later on. It will never be able to fall into a steadfast state. And then we have a fleeing Boolean variable which needs to be set up. This is used just to determine that we're in a fleeing behavior tree area. It's to do with the abort types. Because of the abort type we're using here, and I'll do a tutorial on abort types in the behavior trees later, but because of the abort type we need to know that we are currently fleeing, otherwise we can end up in this tree too many times. Now it's got some basic checks we'll talk about, but the primary new action is check monster morale. We pass it our three variables, which are only local variables as we mentioned before, and the monster morale will return a success if the monster is scared, or a failure if the monster is not scared. Success, we then continue on with the tree as normal. We've added in a send radio message, which is again one of the new actions, with message types of fleeing and the targeted player that we're currently fighting that has caused this morale failure. We've got another play skill animation, so we will play the animation for the heal skill. I just picked that one because they all think they're pretty much the same animations in the demo. Object to animate doesn't need to be set. Some of the extra actions we've added in has this. If it's not set, it's the current entity that this tree is attached to. Otherwise you can override it if you wish to animate maybe the target player or something like that. And then a playtime. We have a find flee location, which is another new action. Based on the targeted player, it finds a location to flee to directly away from that target. Player or anything else can be put into there, and it returns it into the target destination. In this case, I'm using sight range to determine how far to flee, but you could flee anywhere you want. Flee to a certain distance, 5, 10, whatever you want to do. After that, we decide to clear our target state. Again, that's, I think that might be one of our own actions we've added in. We have an entity for player character entities. That's one of the extra kit variables added in. So we're basically setting the targeted player to nothing. We then move to vector, which is another of the new actions. We have the targeted destination that we picked up from clear target state. Object to move is us. We decide not to sprint that distance, we're just running it. He will run to that distance. This will return running until the player actually reaches the endpoint. And then we've added in a wait just to make it look like he's hanging around. One thing I was thinking of, if I had some other animations, you could put in a quiver animation if you had something like that. So he would wave his hands in the air, run away, get to his endpoint, sit there, quiver in fear for a few seconds, whatever, and then keep on moving. And the last thing we do is basically just say, well, we've stopped fleeing now. Now, the reasoning behind these checks here, they're not completely necessary, except for the fact that you'll notice that I've used for this this composite, which is a sequence composite. Sequence composites mean every single item has to be a success, any failure, and the whole sequence aborts. It's an abort type low priority. And so I'll explain this in another tutorial, but essentially any sequence to the right of this, if it's doing a flee or a walk or a wait, and the morale changes during that event, it will abort all the sequences to the right and play this event from start, this task list. Because check monster morale only basically checks as we hit 50%, it will check. It has a 90% chance of failing at 50%. If it doesn't fail, it will keep on. It will return a failure, and the monster won't have failed its morale check. The next time it goes back in, it will not check that 50% again. It only checks it once, the moment the monster passes the 50% mark, and then later the second check, the moment the monster passes the 20% mark. So if you check it twice in quick succession, the second time you'll probably get a different result from the first, because if he hits, say, 45% damage, it triggers this check, it checks it, he passes, it marks never to check this again, and the second time it goes back in, it'll instantly just say, oh, no, he's passed his morale check. And these conditionals, in the case of a abort type, get processed a lot. If you turn the abort type off, it only gets processed as each pulse occurs of the behavior tree, and all the checks go through from top down, left to right. So we wouldn't need to check is fleeing in this case, but the morale check would not interrupt. Say later on he's doing a patrol and you bash him on the head a few times, it wouldn't interrupt that patrol to say, oh, you've dropped below a certain percent, it's time to run. So we do kind of want this abort type in here, and because of that we do need to sort of make sure that he doesn't enter in, the system doesn't enter in this action tree if you're already fleeing. I'll discuss these a little bit later in a different tutorial. As I said, it's quite complicated, these abort types. Now really, that's basically the fleeing system. This is essentially just a test video to see if this helps anyone and to get some ideas about how to do this in the future, and also see if anyone can see the text on the screen. Somebody was complaining about that. So have a good day, we'll talk later.